Welcome into episode 326 of the Source Say podcast, your go-to Kentucky basketball and recruiting podcast on the growing KSR Podcast Network. I am your host, Jack Pilgrim of Kentucky Sports Radio. Buddy, let me tell you, it's been a hell of a weekend. Al opened his call-in radio show saying he's had better weekends, and I have too. It's been a rough journey back home from Pittsburgh. It was sad, depressing, speculative with buddy, let me tell you, I had people that I haven't spoken to in 5, 7, 10, 15 years reaching out saying, what the hell is going on? Presenting information. Everybody came out of the woodworks with their own tale of what was unfolding, Sean. So it was a new one. I've never been through a coaching search before doing this job. And I'm actually... There was a time where I kind of thought that was what was coming for this, and it felt like we were getting in the weeds of everybody wanting to know every little tiny detail and thinking they knew every tiny detail, and it got very tough, very, very difficult, very weird weekend, 5-day stretch between Thursday night's loss to Oakland and the decision to bring John Calipari back for year 16 and what ended up kind of capping things off with a sit-down interview tonight between John Calipari and Mitch Barnhart, where they pledged allegiance to the Commonwealth of the Kentucky Wildcats. And it was interesting to say the least. I know you watched some of it. We're kind of getting our live reactions to it right now, Sean. First and foremost, how are you doing tonight?
I'm fantastic. I'm back on here with you, and John Calipari is still the head coach at Kentucky. 5 days ago, when we recorded, we didn't know that. And that was kind of a raw reaction in the moment too. And now that we're here, Jack, we all kind of, regardless of how we feel about it and whatever we think is best, this is the plan and this is the step forward. And we all got to be in agreement with it. And we all kind of don't necessarily have to support it. Like, I know there's going to be a group of fans that doesn't, and there's going to be a group of fans that do, but there's got to be some middle ground, because regardless of how you feel about it, you got to hope that it works out. Because if you care about this program, then I think everybody's going to be all in and pulling for it. But what a weird last 5 or 6 days that we've kind of gone through, and seeing those two side by side tonight, together, talking about relationship and stuff. And they talked about their marriages and how long they've been married. And it was kind of like, what are we doing here? But then seeing them side by side, Jack, it made me think that I wish that we had just had this public appearance together a long time ago and kind of came together and what was best for the program. But this one's different. It's the first time that we've had like a public announcement from Mitch Barnhart that John Calipari is going to be back as coach, which tells you that this is a point in the program where things have to change. They have discussed what needs to change, and he's heard Cal out. Cal's spoken about defense and toughness, and they've talked transfer portal. Like, I just wish that we'd have gotten ahead of these things when there were tons of changes happening in college basketball. But now that we're here, let's see what happens with it.
I mean, the messaging was weird. There was a lot of back and forth. A lot of it kind of felt like we were having marriage counseling between the two, where we've been together. Oh, you've been married 40 years. I have too. We've been married for 15. Ha ha ha. Like, we got some of that stuff. But I think as the conversation went on and we kind of cut through the awkwardness of it, we kind of got to some real stuff. We heard all about the standard and how it hasn't been met in recent years, and Cal's call-in show Monday night. That was kind of a point of emphasis that this is a championship level standard. So they said all of the things to back up what the mood of the fan base is. And I don't want that to get lost and everybody, we got to get rid of Cal. I guess on the flip side, you guys all wanted Cal out. The revenge tour angle, like, understand that they are doubling down and confirming all of the real raw emotion that this fan base felt over the course of the weekend by saying this program has not been living up to the championship and gold, quote unquote, standard that that Kentucky basketball is bigger than Mitch Barnhart. It's bigger than John Calipari. This has been here. This was well established, and the foundation was set well before they either of them arrived, and it's going to continue all the way through when they do decide that their time is over. Mitch could have made that decision this weekend and decided that his time, that at least Cal's time was over, deciding not to, but both of them at least acknowledging together that the current product is not good enough. And that's what the fan base wanted to hear. I was so tired of the goalpost moving and saying, well, and we got a little bit of that with Cal tonight, saying that I want to be in the top 10 in the regular season. That's never been a goal of this program. That has never been a goal under John Calipari. Day one has been about championship or bust. We expect and demand. And it feels like as time has gone on, it's kind of been like, well, we just want to make a run. That's not been the message. It's never been about just making a message. It's been about, remember day one, we don't hang Final Four banners. We hang. So even a Final Four run wasn't even good enough in the early days of John Calipari. So now we're just saying, let's be in the top 10 and make a run. Whatever. It is what it is. A decision has been made, but I didn't like all the goalposts moving initially afterward. I didn't like the post-game press conference, but at least we're getting some semblance of unity moving forward, where they've always had just the best peachy relationship imaginable, and how truthful that is and cutting through the garbage, quote unquote. That's fine. That's totally fine. Win games. You made this bed, lay in it. That's all that's left to be said. At least we're now all on the same page about what championship standard means.
Well, it all comes down to the NCAA tournament and postseason, right? Like just go back 2 years ago when they lost to St. Peter's. They were good enough to be a 2 seed. This year they were a 3 seed. It's not like they're a trash program or a terrible program. Like they're putting themselves in position to have higher seeds. Now, a year ago they were a 6. And that was a little lower than what everybody thought they were going to be. But a 2 seed and a 3 seed, those seeds win national championships. Those seeds go to Final Fours. It's just the slippage that they've had in the postseason and the NCAA tournament is why we're having these conversations. I was talking to someone earlier today that the 4-year run that has happened at Kentucky, take out the COVID year, the 9 and 16 year, but then you have the last 3 NCAA tournament appearances, still 20-win seasons, winning on the road at Kansas, winning on the road multiple times at Tennessee, what you did this year at Auburn. Those seasons are satisfactory and more than enough at probably 96, 97% of college basketball. But the end result is not at Kentucky. And places like Kentucky, North Carolina, Duke, Kansas, those are where those results become problems. And that's the beauty of this. And we're having to have this discussion because of those results. Those are the expectations. That's the standard that this program has been standing on for before Cal, before Tubby, before Pitino, before Eddie Sutton, before Joby Hall. Like it goes back years and decades. Like that's why you want to come here. There's going to be a ton of pressure. We talked about pressure on this season. That pressure just continues to grow, and coming together and trying to figure out a way to avoid another early season or early postseason loss. That's the priority and goal here, Jack. And they got to navigate these waters together and find out what roster construction looks like, what is best for this program to put rosters together. One thing that I will say that I've always thought has kind of hurt Kentucky, especially in the transfer portal era, is no roster in college basketball has more NBA turnover or things more than Kentucky does. And we've had some long drag out decisions from guys that have put a strain on what they can do in the portal, because you don't want to get active in the portal and then chase off the guy that you have possibly coming back. That hurts Kentucky. These conversations and decisions need to be sped up. I know you're not trying to rush someone's career in their life, but there needs to be some type of level of respect about let's speed this thing up because we need an answer sooner, because we can't miss out on something we're targeting in the portal and let them walk somewhere else. I think that's probably one of the biggest recommendations I would make. Meetings and those decisions, not just meetings, but are you in or are you out, has to be made sooner than what they have been in the last few years.
So that has been a pretty significant talking point in both of Cal's appearances on Monday night and tonight as well. Talking about getting older, adding experience, adding toughness, defense, physicality, all of those things that we said that this team needed throughout the season that, they are now saying is the Achilles heel. Before it was, well, the defensive numbers aren't that bad, and kind of painting lipstick on that pig, then kind of coming to the realization, well, we kind of knew all along that the defense stunk. So that's now going to be a point of emphasis. talking about age and adding experience. Again, that was part of the reason why we talked about, Cal kind of going zigging while everybody else was zagging. That was a conscientious decision on Cal's part to go young when everybody else was going old. So it kind of feels like I don't feel sorry for you when that was the decision to move forward in that way. Like, why would I feel bad when you now have 6 freshmen signed on for next year and you're still recruiting other guys to add to this freshman class while then saying that we need to get older? And like, I don't know, man. But that is the vision. Like, that's that I kind of was interested and fascinated that Mitch Barnhart talked so much about personnel and what that looked like with Cal, saying that we need to figure out leadership from within and add the physicality, add the toughness, add this and that. Like, that was kind of a new, different approach that, I thought it would be more just big picture trajectory of the program conversations than it was actually like the nitty gritty of like what it was going to take from Mitch's perspective to get there. So where is the fine line there when you do have 6 freshmen signed on for next year and it's very clearly going to be a youth heavy group? You're losing Trey Mitchell. You're losing Antonio Reeves. The player meeting started today. Talking to some people around the program, know that we're at least getting somewhere in terms of where guys are leaning and those sorts of things. But that Cal talking Monday that we could get some surprise returners and that could be a way to add experience, which I think everybody's rooting for. I think that was kind of an expectation. If you're going to lose that way, you better get some dudes back that we loved watching this past season to enjoy them next season, hopefully kind of continue and finish what they started this past year. What does that vision look for you, knowing Cal wants to get older, but is bringing in 6 freshman signees?
Well, so stick with me here as I try to kind of put my thoughts out there on this, because I've gone back and forth on where I stand with this. But just like the way that they went old a couple of years ago when they started missing in recruiting, and they had no choice but to go to the portal and go heavily in on it because they just missed on all their key guys. That ended up being a 2-year thing that the roster looked like, because they had so many guys come back from that. Jacob Toppin, Keon Brooks, and things like multiple guys that were there that just ate up scholarships and took up spots. Like, there wasn't as many to kind of go in all in on within recruiting and freshmen. Well, now you've cycled that out and you went all in on a really talented freshman class that just put up exciting numbers offensively. You've also taken a lot of guys now, like you just said. Some guys that we look at in Billy Richmond, Carter Knox, that were kind of developmental pieces that you really don't know where they're going to be at from day one. Like, that still remains to be seen. Those are the question marks for me, where, not saying that those guys can't be good here, Jack.
Of course not.
But what I'm trying to say here is, if you're going to go with those guys, then they have to work out in your program long term. Because if those are the guys that are kind of in between from day one, and those are just 2 guys that I've identified, you can even probably throw Travis Perry in there and Sompto if he's a part of this. Like, all those names, you're looking at them and seeing how they develop. If they're here for a couple of years and developing in your program, then you get older naturally within. If not, that's the scholarships that I'd like to see be given to instant impact transfers that are older and tough and have some toughness and physicality about them. That's where I think the roster construction moving forward beyond this class needs to change. Take the top 15 guys. After that, if you don't feel good about somebody being in your program long term that can develop, you use all of those scholarships on instant impact, older guys that have done it somewhere else in college basketball, and then you can blend it together. So it's hard to do now because you have already gone all in on the youth movement again. So now you've got 6, however many come back, let's say 3 guys. Now you can maybe go to the portal and get a couple. And that's where you got to be very specific about what you're adding to your roster. The most important thing that needs to be added to this roster, though, toughness. You've got to add some tough pieces across your roster, regardless of what position it is. I want some interior toughness, a veteran guard. I'm looking more for that than I am how they fit with what Kentucky does offensively, because the toughness factor was missing for Kentucky this year, and they got pushed around at a lot of spots.
I guess going back big picture a little bit, we got some rather telling quotes from both Mitch and Cal tonight about, I think for the first time, addressing what an exit strategy looks like for both of them. Obviously, there was kind of a general thought that that exit strategy could be within days, not weeks, months, years, whatever. But they were pretty open about the standard it has been set. We haven't been hitting that standard. We're both uber competitors, just guys that are hungry and pissed off when we're losing games. That was kind of how he laid the foundation of the conversation. And then Mitch said, I told him, and I will share this, I hope he doesn't mind me sharing this, whatever we do in our careers, both of us want to exit well. Whatever you do, not a lot of people in our industry and our enterprise of college athletics get to exit the way you want to exit. And I want us to be able to exit well and be able to say that we left it in a really good spot for the people that came behind us. What ends up happening a lot of times is it gets left on the side of the track in a heap, in a mess, and you say good luck to the next guy. That's not what either of us wants. We want to be good caretakers of the program, or for the program, and we want to leave it in the right spot for the next person. What do you make of both of them? And Cal said that, we got to make it future proof. That's everything, that everything's in order. Come in and coach and recruit, and you've got what you need here. Both of them acknowledging that there is an end goal here. Like there is an exit strategy and plan. And I think for the first time, Mitch kind of acknowledging that his hope and goal is for them both to go out on a high note. Obviously, Mitch is a little bit different because he oversees all, the entire athletics department. Cal obviously just overseeing the men's basketball side, but kind of implying that they'd like to go out together at some point. What do you make of those comments, specifically that they want to leave it kind of better than they found it and on a high note?
And that's kind of my takeaway here is for a moment there, maybe I actually started thinking about these two kind of go out together with it. Like Mitch has been here a long time. Mitch has been here a long time. Now, Cal's been here a long time. I mean, 16 years, Jack, is a long time.
He said it was a 10-year job when he got here.
And exactly. And it's shifted. It's changed. I'm not sure what has. I don't know. And we're probably going to get whatever thoughts that we've had on Cal's time here. When he gets 4 or 5 years separation from when his time here is done, you're probably going to get a lot more real honest stuff from him about how his tenure went, and probably some areas where he thought things shifted and went wrong, and maybe some things that he thought went better than planned. And I'd be interested to hear that interview because it's going to come at some point down the road. But moving forward together here, Mitch just made a really good hire for the women's job.
Crushed it.
Unbelievable hire. Killed it. Like, to me, when you dismiss somebody and you replace them with that's a big step forward, which shows you that Mitch is plenty capable. We've seen it with Mark Stoops. We've seen it with Cal. We know that he can hire and make good hires. The thing with this, though, when it came down to it, and I know that we had a really emotional episode over the weekend, and there were really emotional people in the comments. I don't necessarily have to agree that this is the best thing for the program when it comes up. Maybe some of us was ready. And it wasn't as much that I wanted change. It was just kind of like physically and emotionally and mentally, I was like, I don't see how everybody can be in a good relationship here moving forward. Now, here's what Mitch had to consider. You better know who your guy is if you're making a change. And the more that I look at the landscape of college basketball right now, I don't know if that guy exists. So the best thing for the program is probably to try to stay with the guy that has been here with you, and you hope you figure it out for a 2 or 3 year stretch, and then that guy becomes available when everybody's finally ready to move on. That's the hope. Now, I do think that seeing them side by side tonight, regardless of what the relationship is like internally between those two, and I can't speak on that. I don't know. Seeing them side by side, we need more of. This can't just be a one thing when things are going wrong. This needs to be you are shoulder to shoulder and you're in this together, and it needs to be across the board. Fans, everybody. If that's what it's going to take. But Cal has to make some changes. We'll see what happens and comes out of this. But when you get uncomfortable, Jack, and for the first time, I think since Cal's been here, he's probably uncomfortable because the negativity was strong over the weekend. And this situation is different because it led to a public announcement from Mitch Barnhart that John Calipari would be the head coach at Kentucky again, which told you, I believe for the first time, there were legit talks about what it looked like moving forward.
So I have some insight into that, and I know it's kind of a controversial thing to say, with so much misinformation out there and just the tabloids and headlines and all the fun stuff that this has turned into a WWE script. But I can say with confidence that going into the weekend, Mitch Barnhart left the game, left the loss, not considering a change. That he left the game, woke up Friday morning, went through the day, expecting, okay, well, what does the future hold? How do we navigate this with John Calipari? We haven't, that's kind of messaging that we got today. As the weekend progressed, boosters, people with loud, influential voices around the program, supporters of the program, making it very clear that they are not happy with the current results, to the point where they were putting their money where their mouth is of what that would look like, to the point where the $33 million became a non-starter. Like it got loud enough to where the money was there if a change was necessary. And that, for the first time, I think Mitch Barnhart kind of was taken aback by the backlash and, the supporters. Again, like I said on the last show, I had spoken to people, and again, I talked to some of these people, so I know these are real conversations, who had been there from day one with John Calipari, supporters through thick and thin. No matter how this thing was unfolding, they were going to ride or die by John Calipari, funding, putting money where their mouth is in that regard for the positive. For the first time, they kind of said, I don't think that there's a pathway out of this anymore. I don't know if there's nothing that Cal can say or do or put together a roster that makes me genuinely believe that next year is going to be any different than this one. And I heard those things, and I know that Mitch heard those things on his end, and it kind of led to whoa, maybe we do need to just see what this looks like. Once it came down to it, in the math of all of this, Sean, where it's not just the $33 million. I think that's the number that people got stuck on, where it's a lot of money, but that was there. It became pretty clear quickly that it was there. The issue is, it's not just buying that coach out, it's also buying out the assistants and getting rid of and cleaning house with the current staff. Then it is going and buying whoever your dream home run hire is going to be, buying that guy out of his own contract and then paying him what it would cost to lead the University of Kentucky men's basketball program. Those steps, it became not just a $33 million decision, it became a $50 to $60 million decision. And with the landscape of college, and that Mitch talked about this extensively, with the landscape of college basketball changing, we just got the about whether or not these student athletes are employees of the university. Dartmouth College just they're in the middle of their own discussion and lawsuit and court case about whether or not they are employees of the university. And that would open up a can of worms where now you not only have to fund coaching staff and the day-to-day stuff, then you are also paying these student athletes. The big picture of all of this, I think Mitch needed a guy where he said, that's my guy. I love you, Cal, but that's the future of our program. That guy, as you said, Sean, doesn't exist right now. I had heard separately inside conversations I was on the phone the entire weekend for hours upon hours upon hours, talking to some people in the coaching world and behind the scenes that kind of put guys at different spots, saying this guy may be more interested than you'd think, and those would be the dream guy. But then it comes down to that guy would cost $15 million to just go hire annually. So you're taking that dollar figure plus his staff plus the buyout, then it did truly become a $50 to $60 million decision with so many, so many dollars tied up elsewhere, and Mitch Barnhart not just running the men's basketball department, but the entire athletics department with all the renovations and buildings getting built and like all of those things. It became I know that John Calipari knows how to win games. We've hit a recent slump, but for what it would cost to create this massive change, there isn't a guy that I can name without a single lingering doubt that that's going to be my guy. And it just became a non-starter. Like it was the door cracked open and then it was shut very quickly. And then it became what does next year look like? And then we got to the unity and we need to be on the same page and what that looks like and all that. So there was a path there, but it wasn't open for very long because of just how expensive it would have been, which it's only going to be $6 million less next year. So if it wasn't now, what would it take, Sean?
Well, that's what I was about to tell you. Like what I've learned the last 5 days, and especially in the last 24 hours, John Calipari is never getting fired at Kentucky. It's not happening. It would take something. It would take something bad at this point. Now, if they go miss the NCAA tournament next year, then I think you probably start to look at it then. But if they go to the tournament, let's just say they win a game next year and they go to the second round, like you said, it's $6 million less, and they won another game in the tournament. What's different about this year and next year? It's just another year on top of it. I just don't see it now at this point. So I think now what you're hopeful for is that you regroup here, you make necessary changes to whatever your staff looks like, whatever your philosophy is. And I don't know, like the offense philosophy, I loved it. I love what they did offensively. You got to get back to being tough and physical defensively and finding your identity there. But the biggest thing with this is how do you construct your rosters? That's going to be what takes Kentucky into the future in a positive light or into a negative light. Is how are these rosters put together in this climate of college basketball? He keeps saying 25, 26, and 27 years old. That is not true. Like he's exaggerating there. College basketball is older. You have to get older. That doesn't mean every guy on your roster has to be 23 years old. Goes back to what I said. Recruit the best of the best, get what you can, and then from that point on, the rest of your roster, if it's not guys that have developed within your program and gotten older naturally, you go get the transfers that have proven themselves, and that's how you finish out your rosters. And I think that could be a 50-50 blend, honestly, of veterans and freshmen. And that's what I'm looking for. And now this transfer cycle here, I think it's going to be difficult to kind of go all in on that philosophy change just because they've already taken 6 freshmen. Mm-hmm. So they got to be very intentional with what they do. Plus, we'll get into this about who's coming back, who's not coming back, and that talk. Decisions need to be made sooner. You need to identify. You can't let guys go into that portal that you know are instant impact guys and just say, well, I'm going to hold off because I don't want to push DJ Wagner out the door. Nah, you can't be held hostage by anybody anymore. You are to a point to where it is program first at this point. Once the offseason gets here. I know that he says the offseason is about players. That has to change. You can be about both. You can have the conversations, give them advice, tell them and recommend stuff, but you cannot be sitting back on your hands. You have got to move forward and put this program in a position to continue moving, because when these guys are gone, this program is still here and this passionate fan base still exists. And that's what they want. So do I think John Calipari is ever getting fired here? No. Am I hopeful that there's a 2 to 3 year run? Maybe it's just another year run. I don't know, but I'm hopeful that it's good and that the next guy emerges and we have an ideal candidate of who can take this job into the future. Because when Cal was hired 16 years ago, it was clear cut that John Calipari was the guy. It wasn't that way 2 years before, even though they probably should have called him. Mitch couldn't find that clear cut guy. 2 years later, he found him. You're hopeful that the same thing plays out here with this scenario too, that Cal can get it right, move it forward, and then leave it in a good position to where whoever emerges is ready to take over. That, to me, feels like the plan here in discussions that probably have been had.
So here's my frustration, concern, just mindset going into this season. I don't think that John Calipari magically lost the ability to coach. Like I still think that he is, even in terms of X's and O, and I know that's the biggest gripe that people have for him. I still think he is among the best of the best in college basketball. And from a pure surface level perspective, there isn't another clear-cut guy, as we've talked about, that you would want instead of him on your sidelines, big game, small game, medium game, from that perspective. My concern is that his messaging has, like, it's the boy who cried wolf with John Calipari now. Nobody believes a word that he says anymore about the why. Well, what it, like, I used to really hate that snake oil salesman nickname that he had, that he was just this sleazy, like, I hated it totally went against what made him him. And because I do think, at his core, he is an unbelievably good person. But I do think that the charisma and has kind of masked some of those things. And it's been great at his peak, but at his worst, in the losing, it has created there is nothing that this man can say to me that makes me believe that anything is going to change moving forward. Listening to him talk with Mitch tonight, I actually liked some of the things that Mitch said. I thought that it was different. Again, we don't ever hear from the guy in terms of a basketball perspective. So maybe it's just because he needs to talk more, but I would listen very closely to what Mitch was saying, but every time Cal talks, it was, wow, he is repeating every single word that he said in the call-in show 2 days ago. What if I'm having an issue truly believing in somebody that throughout the season was seen as the Cal apologist and the ass kisser, like that was what I was known for. If I am struggling to get to that next level with Cal in terms of, okay, I believe you, man, let's see what the next vision looks like, let's do that. What about the average generic fan that is over the moon pissed off about how this is all going? And there were times as the conversation tonight was going on with Mitch and Cal that I just don't think they had the true mood of the fan base. And like, I don't think that they truly understood the anger, the true anger and sadness that we're watching these games. Sweet 16 now, we're going into, this regional weekend where we should be in Dallas talking about who our matchup is and all those things. It is now turned into extreme anger, and it feels like some of the hits, like Cal's just going to the hits, and I just don't think he understands that. Like when he says, I know you guys are all sad, I know you guys are angry, but nobody's more upset and sad than I am. I don't think that's true. Like, I think there are a lot of people that are hurting worse than John Calipari right now, and sometimes I just want to feel that way, where he's like, there's nothing that I can really say right now that is going to make you guys feel better about this. Let me handle this. I got it. I know you guys are hurting. I know that this product is unacceptable. Let me figure out a way to get this right. Sometimes I just wish the humility was there of, yeah, I know I can't talk my way out of this one. And it still feels like sometimes he tries to go to the hits to make up for lost time or make up some ground with the fan base. And I just don't know what he's going to say to the average fan this year, or who he could add, or what the roster would even look like to make them go, all right, I'm pushing all my chips back in.
Yeah, nobody's pushing them all the way back in. People are going to support for the most part. Rupp Arena is going to have people in the seats. The regular season is going to have really good moments. But what I said the other night, and I got a kind of a mixed reaction from it when I said, no, this isn't going to die down. What I meant by that is, yes, we're going to reach a point here to where we all kind of settle down. We look at what this looks like. But in the back of our minds, each time something goes wrong, let's say Kentucky loses to Duke in the Champions Classic and it doesn't look good, the negativity is going to be higher than it ever has been after one of those games. When you lose a game or two at Rupp Arena in December or January, the negativity is going to be higher. Everything is going to be magnified because none of it in the end matters until March and what they do in that tournament. It's just another year of wearing it on your shoulders. And the only way to eliminate that is to go on a run. That's the only way. That's the only way that they ever get over this period is to go on a run the NCAA tournament. If they go 31-0 in the regular season, win the SEC tournament, move to 34-0, and they lose in the first weekend, the 34 wins before it does not matter. That's the point that we have reached with this.
Do you think, though, that because a big part of the fan base's frustration, and Cal talked about this, he brought up how he cares about the SEC tournament. I'm like, okay, bud, sure. But would it change this fan base's mindset if he won the games that we cared about throughout the year? Like, if he goes and wins a Champions Classic, says, glad we won this one for the fans, love you guys, let's go do it again. If it was going to win the I know everybody wanted the Maui Invitational and like scheduling changes. I think that's more long in the distance thing. I would personally love it. We're seeing all these cool like NIL events and different things that I'd love to be a part of. Those things matter to the fan base. I wonder how much those specific things could minimize the make or break Final Four mindset that this fan base clearly has. If they were to go on a regular season run, do the kind of the hit points that Steven talks about that we haven't, win the Champions Classic, be a number 1 seed, win the SEC tournament. If we were to go do those things, would that take some of the pressure off this program, do you think? Or do you think it's all hell is broken loose and it's a lost cause at this point? Because I do think that if there is the fan stuff that we've been craving and haven't been getting as of late, I do think that there is a slight path there to where he could build himself a little cushion going into March.
So my thing would be, if you ask most fans, every game matters, right? Like it doesn't matter if you're playing Arkansas or if you're playing Duke. Like every game matters to this fan base. But I get 100% what you're saying, because they haven't been good in champions. But this is also a team that went to CBS and beat a North Carolina team. They ended up being a number 1 seed. They have gone on the road and won at Allen Fieldhouse in dominating fashion and beaten Kansas just a couple of years ago. And here we are still in this situation because, one, Kansas went on that year to win a national championship, and then they played North Carolina in the title game. Duke was also in that Final Four. UConn has won another national championship in that window. Like it remains to be seen what's happening in this tournament. Like there's a team in your league in Tennessee that's trying to break through and get to a Final Four. Like all these things in the midst of a drought for Kentucky fans in how you measure success is why there's so much pressure. And I think with each year that passes, what we were latching onto and holding onto with this program was the past. And the past has always been what has made this program. The past is what builds the future. The past is what makes people think about the next banner that goes beside 2015 in the Rafters are Up. The problem is the gap between past and present just continues to get wider and wider. And as that happens, you're losing confidence in the guy that's on the graphic right underneath me. That's what has to change. The only thing that eliminates this entirely, Jack, is if they go on a run and do something in the NCAA tournament. Yes, I want to see them win the SEC tournament and give those fans in Nashville a weekend to remember. It starts there, but what you're saying actually has to happen, in my opinion, for the result I'm talking about to happen, because that's what was happening when this program was right. I was talking about earlier, they were a 2 seed and lost to a 15. They were a 3 seed and lost to a 14. They were a 4 seed in 2011 and went to the Final Four and were good enough to win the title. They were an 8 seed in 2014, went all the way to the NCAA title game. They've been good enough regular season 2 of the last 3 years to put themselves in position to make runs. But when it came down to it, the pressure got them and they couldn't do it. And that's all anyone remembers from it.
I think no matter what, you got to let these kids feel the pressure. We can't hold their hands again all season long and saying, well, I can't, do you really want me to say you got to go win this game? I do. I think pressure is what this last year's team never got to feel, because everything was kicking the can down there. And that's why I said that mindset going into March was such an unbelievably dangerous thing for that team, because all season long they were playing with house money. Rob Dillingham at LSU, house money. Reed Shepard at Mississippi State, house money. All of those individual moments, they never felt, I gotta go win this game. So they never felt it. All season long, there wasn't a must-win opportunity. Like when they hit that losing streak, and like I think it kind of it hit them a little bit of, all right, guys, we got to kind of kick ourselves in the butt and get this thing moving. But all of it was everything on March, and it's why I was so saying that you got to be careful with that, because then pressure then turns into stress. You can never let pressure translate into stress and feeling that Reed Shepard moment against Oakland. Like I just never thought it was fair for the kids to say none of this stuff matters. Let's SEC tournament, it's all for seeding. Let's just go see what it does for seeding. Let's get us a nice little draw and then go into March. And then when the lights flicked on, it was, oh shoot, our season could be over tomorrow. Like they went into that game with the right mindset. And then when the lights turned on, it was in 40 minutes, our Kentucky careers could be over. That's something that you don't want them to feel in that moment. Let them feel it in the CBS Sports Classic. Let them feel it in the Champions Classic. Let them feel it little individual moments throughout the season to build up. So once the pressure turns on in March, it doesn't turn into stress. It just turns into engagement. They lock in. They go, we know, we've seen this. We felt this. We know what this looks like. Some of that is experience. Maybe go add guys in the, that have had an NCAA tournament run, and if you're going to add in the portal. You got to be calculated with how you build this roster, because if you get a group of guys that has never felt pressure in their entire basketball careers, they're going to feel the exact same way going into March. That is, as we've talked about, double the pressure of what this last year's team felt. And we saw what that looked like. Cal said that it was anxiety going into that. A big part of that is the messaging and approach leading up to that moment. So now imagine next year's group.
Yeah. And you need veterans to kind of bridge this, and getting active in this portal. As names enter it, Jack, you got to identify where you go, which now leads us kind of into what this thing could look like. And like I said at the opening of the show, the biggest change to me that needs to happen is there needs to be a better system for how you navigate the offseason. I get it. You want to take time. You want to take time away. You want to let everybody kind of get to themselves. Listen, these players and these families, they're hearing it from November all the way through March. They know where they stand. Have the conversations much sooner, and it seems like those have started, which is a good thing. Start having those about maybe 5-6 days after the final game of the season, and then put a plan in place here. And you got to start setting some deadlines. And I know the combine, and I know the pre-draft stuff, everything, it's so extended into it. This is what makes this difficult, because the transfer portal overlaps all the other stuff. That's why I think you see coaches declining NIT bids, because they want to get a jump on the portal. They want to get a jump on their offseason and what their rosters can look like. You have so much coaching turnover. I mean, with guys and things like, Josh Schertz right now at Indiana State, a guy that I know. There's this with St. Louis. There's this with this school. Like, that's a lot going on while the other job is still actually taking place. Like, there's so much movement and crisscross stuff in college basketball that it is a headache. College coaches that I talk to all the time are talking to me about how hard it is to manage this. And even though you've added staffers and you've added people to your staff that can kind of delegate things, you don't have enough hands on deck to kind of navigate it all. So that's where you've got to put your plan in place, and you got to have it ready to go before you ever even have to have it. Like, you need to know, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to give. This is the advice we're going to give to this guy. And then from that point on, you've kind of got to set a deadline for yourself, because you owe it to the program. This program cannot take a back seat to anyone anymore. It's always been known as a player's first program. It can be both. It can be a player's program, and it can be a fan's program. That's what has to happen moving forward, because the fans, Jack, they support these players regardless. But they want something in return, and success in March is the return. So putting these rosters together and getting something sooner, you cannot have what happened last year, where Oscar Tshiebwe went all the way down to the end. It cannot happen because you miss out on stuff in the portal. You have got to have something set and established, and guys have got to let you know where they're leaning, where they're going. These are tough decisions, but you got to make some tough ones as well. And you may have to take guys, even if it means it forces somebody out, because you got to take care of the program. Because you've taken care of them. Now you got to take care of the program at that point.
What is the dream scenario there, Shauna? Because again, the situation is what it is. We are now officially on year 16. We're officially in roster building mode. There's nothing we can do about it now. Now it's time to build that national championship level roster. What would it take from a returning talent standpoint to say, all right, we at least have the foundation set. It's go time. Let's just see what we got with this. What is the ideal scenario for John Calipari this offseason in terms of guys that he could and hopefully should get back?
Well, I'll start here. Like Reed Shepard has a decision to make. If Reed goes, he's getting drafted. I think we can all agree with that. So it comes down, but Reed's a different case, though. Reed's a different situation because of the legacy and the love that he has. Like most of these guys, Jack, yeah, they followed Kentucky basketball, but Reed has lived it since the day he was born. It's different to him. So that's a decision that is kind of deeper than anyone has ever had to make that has come through here in this time. I would love to see Reed Shepard back because I think the way that game ended and the way the moment was for him, that he doesn't want to go out that way here. Now, could he? Yeah, he could. And he could make a lot of money. And I think the fans would support him regardless. If John Calipari can get Reed Shepard back, I think it's enough to kind of get people moving forward in a positive light. But I'll also say this one. Oh, go ahead.
Let me tell you, after Travis Perry goes and cuts the nets down at Rupp Arena, I think those two being on the floor together would make some fans have some short-term memory real quick. Like, that could be that image of Travis Perry and Reed Shepard together sharing the same backcourt inside Rupp Arena, I think would be like that Men in Black, like memory eraser, like click. That's for some. Again, we're even still, that would be a stretch, but I have had that vision in my head after seeing Travis cutting down the nets and having the title trophy and saying, man, I could cry right now. This means so much to me in my state. It's like, oh, buddy, you have no idea. If you and Reed can play together, you just have no idea. But carry on. I know it's not just about those two.
It's not. And the other guy that I will throw out there that I think needs another year at Kentucky, DJ Wagner.
Do it.
DJ Wagner needs another year of college basketball. And this is where I'm hopeful that his pedigree and the resources that he has recognize it, because he's got a family history of guys that have played in that league and been successful in that league, and they know what it takes. I don't want to see DJ leave this program and then go fail in the league or try to figure it out in the G League. I want to see another year of DJ try to be the best version of himself, try to improve on some things. That's where it starts. If you can get that backcourt back, then I think that you can at least rally behind this new era of whatever this is going to be with John Calipari, because we don't know what it's going to look like. We're hopeful that things change, but that would be a starting point. And I think that's where it starts, is with that. There's going to be transfers. Absolutely, there's going to be transfers. There's going to be guys that maybe a year ago, Jack, we didn't even see what's about to come for them. Like, there's going to be a lot of movement and a lot of roster turnover, like there always is. And then there'll be portal additions and everything. But to me, it starts with those two. Reed has a tough decision because he is good enough to make it in the league. DJ's not. DJ is not good enough right now to make it in the league. It'd be the worst decision that he could make. And that's where I'm hopeful that Cal is real and honest. Don't let him walk out that door.
And there's also the Billy Richmond impact, where he gets a chance to, like, Aaron Bradshaw, that story, it didn't work out in Kentucky's favor, those two playing together. But in terms of, again, Cal putting such an emphasis on physicality and defense and just that toughness, we didn't get to see as much of that as we had hoped with DJ Wagner. That was the vision. That was what he was supposed to be, what he was brought in to be. And we just, between the injuries and just the noise, we never got to see that at its peak. Now imagine bringing in Billy Richmond, a guy that he developed some nice chemistry, played grassroots and at the high school level. Those two could wreak some havoc on the defensive end, on top of, if you're able to, I hope if all is good, that you get Reed Shepard back, you could start seeing some of the, Cal talking about tonight, that he likes this recruiting class for the toughness, for the physicality, for, some of the defensive traits that they have. Billy Richmond is one of those main guys that he's talking about. So I would be particularly intrigued by those two playing together more than anything.
Yeah, me too. And are you in agreement? I don't know how deep you want to get into what this roster could look like, because I still think we're a week or so away from really diving in. But I think me and you can agree here, when it comes to transfers, there's going to be some that move out of this program. And this is what I'm going back to what I said earlier. You got to be very careful about how you put rosters together from this point forward. Last offseason was a weird situation because they had nobody on their roster but incoming freshmen. And the senior that they did have coming back at the time, Antonio Reeves, was kind of hot and cold on whether or not this was the best place for him. And it worked out. He had an unbelievable year. Thank God it worked out. And he went down swinging, gave Kentucky a chance to try to advance. But he was kind of shied away from possibly the freshman overshadowing it. And that has been the model that was set here and established here. He had every right to think that a year ago. But you got him here. But being in that situation, you maybe took some guys that you probably wouldn't have taken had you been a little bit more active in the portal. And this is where I'm coming in. And I don't know who's going to transfer. I'm going to save it for when that happens. But if you're going to go after guys that are just here 1 year and they don't really do anything for your program, don't use that scholarship. Use it on a veteran guy that has proven that has a college body, that is 21, 22 years old. That's how you get older. Those are the guys in the scholarships that need to be used on the portal. That's how I think this thing changes and gets you right. And it doesn't have to be 10th man, 11th man, 12th man, 13th man. Get those older guys in your program. Continue to get your freshmen that are elite. And I think that you can start to blend something together. And then maybe you have guys like a Billy Richmond and a Carter Knox that want to develop within your program, and they're here 2 or 3 years. Then you're getting older naturally, but then you use those other scholarships to get older with guys that have done it, let's say at Creighton, or guys at San Diego State, or in the SEC. That's where you use those scholarships. Don't just fill out rosters with bodies. Fill them out with bodies that are physical that can help you instantly.
Before we move any farther, I can't even say another word before we acknowledge this dude, Jordan G, Louisville fan here. I'm glad y'all brought Cal back. Buddy, you guys moved to options 7, 8, and 9 for your coaching search that ended up looking into Richard Pitino. So I don't want to hear it. You guys got turned down by 6 different dudes that nobody wanted this job. And then you end up settling on a Chris Mack protege. Like, are we serious here, buddy? You are not even in the same planet as any of, like, you should be worried about competing with Murray State and Morehead State. I don't even want to, like, they don't even deserve the jabs there. Like, Preston Spradlin would coach circles around this Chris Mack protege. Get out of here, bro. Like, the big boys are talking in college basketball. You continue to be little brother. You have no say-so in any of this. So, how hilarious that somebody that almost hired got turned down by Richard Pitino because he would rather stay at New Mexico is talking. Like, the grown-ups are talking here, bud. Anyway, tell me if I'm wrong in this assessment. I know DJ is kind of in that most valuable player guy that you definitely want to have back. Obviously, Reed's the dream. For my money, I think the most important guy on this roster is Adu Thero. I think Adu is a guy that you cannot lose to the transfer portal. That's a guy that there's some early speculation that he's going to have interest and there's going to be a bidding war of sorts for that guy because, as we said all year long, there's a vision for Adu Thero that it is not even remotely close to most people in college basketball. Like what he brings to the table physically, just from an athletic and build standpoint, that's a guy that you can see once he realizes who he is physically and athletically, and he becomes a 37% 3-point shooter, that's a lottery pick. And it's not even really that hard to see him get to that point. So that's a guy that I think fits really, really well with some of these other pieces. He's got to understand the physicality side of it that I think he has missed at times. He at times didn't really realize just how big and strong he was and kind of got targeted defensively. Like he's a guy that's going to have to engage up there and say, I can be that dude, but you got to get him back because there's going to be a lot of people wanting Adu Thero services. And I'm hoping that when the conversations really start to ramp up and he starts getting to the bottom of what he's looking for at the next level, I know it's going to be intriguing to say, I can go somewhere and play 35 minutes a game and, get as many touches and shots as I want. But the platform here is going to be something that you just can't get anywhere else, especially considering what the pressure is going to be on this program next year. There's not going to be more eyeballs on the Kentucky basketball program, and Adu Thero needs to be part of that next season, John.
Yeah, and with his progression that he's had from freshman year to sophomore year, if you get just a similar jump from sophomore year to junior year, he is an NBA draft pick. And as you mentioned, an improved 3-point shot and things, I think that is something that should be on his list of goals this spring and this summer before moving into a new season. But you're right. Like if that guy were to leave Kentucky, he's probably a locked-in starter wherever he goes because those guys that leave this program, they don't come off the bench. So to me, it'll be all about discussions on where he stands and where he falls on this roster and whether or not he's starting. I truly think that's probably going to be one of the more important things for Adu moving forward. But if he is on this roster, I do see him being in that starting lineup unless they just go out and just add 2 studs in the portal or somebody that's just better than him and clear-cut better. I think that Adu has a lot of value in being on it, and he would be another one of those guys that I would put in. Like if you could tell me that Kentucky could get back Reed Shepard, I'm going to continue to throw him in there just because of the legacy connection here. DJ Wagner, Adu Thero, and let's say Z. If that's what Kentucky were to bring back, and then you mix in whatever shakeout happens, if you lose a guy from your class and you get another scholarship for the portal, I don't necessarily think that's a terrible thing. Or if you bring in all those freshmen and then you go get a portal piece or two, then I can start to kind of buy into what Kentucky can be next season. Let's take DJ out of it and say you get Justin Edwards back. I still can buy into that and get somewhat excited and hopeful that things can be really good next year as long as you add some experience and some veteran pieces from the portal too. I think that's the key thing. There's got to be 3 things here. You got to have your freshmen come in. You need a couple of them to be very good. To me, the 2 most likely would be Boogie and Jaden Quaintance. I think those are the 2 that are going to be ready to make impacts instantly. 2 or 3, at least 3 guys back from that undecided list. And then a couple of portal veterans to mix it. Those 3 things, if they happen, I think John Calipari can put a roster together. And I think that's what this came down to, Jack, is Mitch probably looked at this and said, okay, where do we go here if we decide to make a change? And he couldn't find it. So the path to probably being good is I do think that Mitch believes that John Calipari can put a competitive roster on the floor next year. And I think they're just a few decisions away from doing that. And I want to see what it looks like here in about 8 weeks when we finally put a bow on it. I'm not going to say mid-May because I did that last year and it ended up being June. So no, I'm not giving any time. I'm not giving any timelines this year.
By October.
Yeah, when it's done, we'll talk about it and figure it out. But I'm going to do the waiting game that I did this year with not talking about what I truly felt until after they lost to Oakland. I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm not going to fully address it until I see what the end picture and end result looks like. But if those three things can happen, then I think that you can put a competitor on the floor. But then it comes down to it doesn't matter what you do till March. That's the ultimate thing about it. You got to win in that tournament.
That's what Mitch signed up for by continuing with the path that we're going down. And, that's just kind of what everybody in there signed up for. But man, I do think going back to what Cal said Monday night of, I'm not going to, the messaging was different in that, where before it was, if you want to do what's best for me, return. If you want to do what's best for you and your family, go. It was, obviously he's not going to force guys to come back, but if it's one of those stay, go, maybe 50-50, coin flips, at least going to kind of give you the pitch of, man, here's what the vision looks like. Here's what we can do together. And I just, man, once he said that, I know everybody was excited about DJ and Reed, but my mind went straight to Big Z. Like, my mind went straight there of, buddy, I know you're older. I know you've already gone through the draft process twice, and everything in your body is saying, man, I'm old. I need to get the hell out of, just get to the NBA and start figuring out what that looks like. I get that. I understand that that's going to be the first instinct on your part, but just see what a full offseason would do for you. Look what it would do for your body and how you can grow, and the understanding of just the college game and things that you just weren't able to grasp on the fly this season. Imagine the put together with paper mache and duct tape, what we saw this season with him, just kind of throwing him in on the fly, literally. I can't even believe that happened. Can you believe that he got declared eligible like 3 hours before he went to the gym to put on his warm-ups and play his first game? What a ridiculous season this was. Anyway, once we kind of just see this as like a mini red shirt year where he got to just see what the physicality looked like, see what this experience is like, come back, experience that all the way through the summer, really dig in with the strength and conditioning program, get the body right, get the conditioning right, figure out where the hell to eat. Do not, whatever gave you food poisoning 36 times this past year, don't ever eat that again. Please figure out your diet and what works for you here, and just go all in with that. Just push all of your chips in on this season and become a very clear lottery pick next season. I know I was gassing up Adu Thero and what that vision looks like, because you could physically see that with him. But Z's got some stuff to him too, where you could very clearly see those two in that lottery conversation of guys like, whoa, I never even would have imagined a year ago that we would be having these conversations about what, future lottery picks would look like for Kentucky. Those two would be in the conversation if you got Z back as well.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that getting Z back is a big thing for this program. And I know that none of the three, when it came down to it, Ugo, Bradshaw, or Z, none of them really just grabbed a hold of that role this year, which I think ended up being a big problem for Cal, because he just continued to play it. But I always thought that Z should have been the one that he settled on, even in the midst of struggles. Because if you're going to get him back, and let's just say, just throwing it out there, let's just say for some instance, one of them goes to the NBA and one of them goes to the transfer portal and Z comes back. What you could have done was developed a guy and gone all in on it. And that's what I wish he would have done. Because I do feel like that Z, of the three, has the most upside moving forward in the game of basketball, regardless of level. And if he's on this roster next year, I would have loved to try to develop him a little more in his first season here. That way he's ready to roll instantly. You got Jaden Quaintance coming in. Like there's options there, and I see a path to have both. And then you kind of figure out where you want to go from there with it comes to the portal. But I want this staff, and whatever it looks like, and there's going to be changes, 100%. Like, we know that there's going to be some movement when it comes to the staff here. Because anytime you have the run that you've had, changes have to be made. And if you're not making it to the head coach, you're making it elsewhere. So What I want to see is an active staff going after some of the most talented guys that go in the transfer portal. Not everyone's going to find a Dalton Connect kind of hidden gem, but you want to take a chance on a guy. Antonio Reeves worked out. They have gotten good transfers. Oscar Tshiebwe was Player of the Year in college basketball. Antonio Reeves, All-American. It's worked out. They have gotten guys. Kellen Grady was really good until the last couple of games. And the transfer list goes on and on. They have gotten good transfers, and I think they're going to continue to do that. Now it's about finding that blend, Jack, and it's about a puzzle piece in a puzzle that looks entirely different than it did 10 years ago. The way you put your rosters together at one point worked. You've tried both now. Now you put it together. And let's see what it looks like. I think that's the answer moving forward.
Couple quick notes here. KSR is thrilled to partner with our good friends at Fayette Heating and Air and H2O Maestro. Their team of experts are ready to handle all of your heating, cooling, plumbing, and electrical needs. To learn more or to schedule an appointment, visit FayetteHeating.com, your number one complete home solutions company in Kentucky. And then the Source Say podcast is also brought to you by Andy Ludicky and MyPerfectFranchise.net. Andy is a franchise consultant as well as franchise owner and helps people find franchises that fit their skill sets, financial requirements, time to commit, and more. His services are 100% free, and he is here to help. If you have any questions about business ownership, you can learn more and contact Andy anytime at www.myperfectfranchise.net. I believe that is all for those. But Sean, I know it's been a hectic week, a frustrating week, a sad week. You know, what is the thing that fans can hang on to? Like, what is the thing that we can look at and say, all right, we have gotten the chaos behind us a little bit. Let's focus on the future. What is this for me personally? Some of the comments Cal made saying we kind of saw the vision of what progress looks like in terms of developing the modern offense and having, understanding what it takes and having the random and having the, positionless guys who can pass, dribble, and shoot and, all of that stuff. He said that that's something that he never wants to get away from. Now it's just about kind of finishing the product and saying that was our Achilles heel. Let's just kind of, on the defensive end and the physicality and those things, let's figure out how to turn the page on that and kind of combine the two. We've seen elite all-in defenses under John Calipari. We've seen all-in offenses. Let's hope next year's group is a nice little combination of both with the inclusion of a little bit more experience. What on your end is all right, this is what I'm hanging on to going into the offseason?
I think the biggest thing that I feel better since we've talked on here, and now that the dust has settled, we've got some clarity on the whole situation. There's no more wondering if John Calipari is going to be the head coach of Kentucky. Whether you agree with that or you disagree with it, if you're a fan of this program, now you just have to accept it. And you just got to hope for the best. And I do think what I said the other night, that it's not just going to die down. It's not going to entirely die down, Jack. Because each time that something goes wrong, it's going to be louder than it's ever been. It's just you're hopeful that it stays died down enough that they have a successful season, but then they go win games in that tournament that matters. To me, moving forward here, the identity that this program has been established on when it was successful was the defensive end of the floor. You can talk how the roster was put together with freshmen. It was the defensive end of the floor. That's where this program built an identity and a reputation. They blocked shots. They got out and ran in transition. You got to get back to that. Now, he keeps talking about how he's going to distribute and use his summer practices. Are you going to build really good defenses with 10 practices in the summer? No. But you can lay some foundation down. Do I think that that's what did it? I don't, because if he didn't work on his defense in these 10 practices now, he wasn't doing it back when they were defending at a high clip. So my thing is, Jack, if that's what he thinks is going to work, I think it's all about having guys around you that you trust and that you can help kind of delegate things to. Whoever this staff is, whatever it looks like, You need guys that are exceptional on the defensive end of the floor. You need guys that are offensive specialists. You've got that in John Wells. Like, you've got guys there. I think it's about all that coming together, and you try to find a step forward. You have moved forward offensively. Now you got to move back forward defensively, but it's a toughness thing that's been missing. This program has not been tough for a while now. It has gotten soft in a lot of areas. And if you don't have toughness, guess what you don't have? You don't have defense and you don't have rebounding. And those two things crushed any chance that this team had this season. You got to find that identity of toughness. And if you find it, the other two work itself out.
I just couldn't help but laugh. Timo, next season will not be good. Just in the middle of this, Sean, let's rah-rah. Let's rally together as a fan base, and we can do this together. Timo, yeah, we suck, bro. God bless America, man. I can't believe that this is reality right now. We should be focusing on like going to Dallas, but here we are. Speaking of which,
you ready for another off season of the show? Because this is where
no, I'm
really
not ready.
starts.
Not even a little bit. Just God, whatever. Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tournament, not including Kentucky. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a 1 seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who is going to win it all. Just visit FanDuel.com/Pilgrim and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. 21 and older and present in Kentucky. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Fun show, man. I've needed this. I needed a little vent session, not take things too seriously sometimes because I was a little jazzed. I'll be honest. I was a little frustrated going into this one for various reasons, but I feel better now. We got to the end of it.
If you want to know how many people watched the last episode of this, I walked into work and everybody was like, "Hey, I watched you on Source to Say the other day." And that must have been the first time some people watched it. And I think some people were probably surprised to see my face pop up on the screen. Like, I don't think that, not everybody knows what I do, but that's what told me that episode was doing numbers. And I was like, oh boy. So
hey, at least you didn't say anything like really controversial or anything. That'd be rough. I guess it's not really controversy because it was pretty much a consensus with everybody. But
I think we all felt the same way on Saturday morning. But then I had Cracker Barrel and I started feeling better.
Buddy, let me tell you, I know I could chicken and dumplings, man. I woke up this morning, I'll be honest, and I want to address this ever so slightly, but I woke up this morning and my name was getting thrown into absolute ridiculousness, chaos that made me laugh out loud, but also like just made me lose my mind all day long. Like it just consumed my entire day of like again, some of the details, and which of those details were just absolutely hilariously wrong, and how, like, if people actually understood my thoughts on a few of those things, they would like understand how wrong that information was. But regardless, people asking me what a Discord was and what a Trilly was and different things. And like, I'm getting screenshots from dudes. Again, I've talked to people that I have not talked to in genuinely a decade that are reaching out and going, "Hey, bud, are you doing all right? It's been kind of a rough little stretch for you." I'm like, "I'm fine. I just need air. I just need to breathe." It has been a whole heck of a lot. But yeah, of all of the like 6-day stretches I can say I've had in my life, this was among the worst. This is definitely lower tier for sure. It was a rough ass week.
You got a gold standard, but it wasn't the one that you wanted.
Oh, I still have some of those on my counter. I might grab one after this, but ridiculous. Sean, let's we were used to doing like 2 shows a week with the wins and game at post game, midweek, whatever. So now I don't really know what our schedule is going to be. I know we have a lot to talk about. So in terms of like player decisions and all that. I remember, how did we do it last off season? Was it just whenever news came out, we just ran with it? Is that how that worked?
Well, if you remember last year, I'm assuming we'll set a day that we'll do consistently, but then if anything happened in the midst of that, we always just recorded. Because last year it was Hunter Dickinson. Is he coming to Kentucky? Is Oscar Tshiebwe coming back? Are they both not coming back? Like, it was something every other day. So I'm assuming we'll lock in a day here once the tournament and stuff's over with, once we get into April. And then from that point on, Jack, with each name that hits the portal and each name that Kentucky shows interest in, if there's something happens, staff changes, the content's not going to slow down. It's actually probably going to speed up. And we rode that momentum all the way into June last year and then into Canada. So we'll see what happens over the next few months, but you'll definitely be hearing from us quite a bit.
Matt G says, let's see what the rest of your shirt says. What's it say? America's team? Yeah. It was the only hardware we brought home this year. Global Jam. I'll always remember that gold medal for the rest of my life. All right, let's get out of here, and we'll come back. We have some, in-depth decision conversation to get to about who's staying, who's going, all that stuff. Player meetings have officially begun, so that's what our focus will be. Unfortunately, we're not focused on Sweet 16. We have to worry about what next year looks like, and that's just the nature of the beast. But we'll always be here goofing off, being stupid, and continuing to just spread misinformation, as Mitch Barnhart likes to say. Sean, where can fans find your work?
You can follow me at GBB Country.
Find me on Twitter as well, at Jack Pilgrim KSR. Go subscribe to KSR Plus. It is freaking booming right now. As you could probably imagine, we're letting out all the inner speculation stuff going on behind the scenes. We're keeping everybody up to date. Go subscribe there. You do not want to miss that action. Subscribe here. There's plenty of conversation to come in the very near future. I believe 11 personnel is going live tomorrow. So we got football, we got spring practice, we got a ton of content here coming as we transition into the off season. Jack Pilgrim, Sean Smith, we will see you next time.